Good morning. It's Tuesday, August 27th, and the day what I wanted to talk about was the Southeast Game Exchange again, but more specifically, the panel experience. Now, I've already talked about this a number of times on the channel, and I just did a stream last night, which replaced yesterday morning stream, where I talked about just the experience of going to the Southeast Game Exchange, period, and what an amazing time it was, and just an amazing time if you're a gamer, but again, borderline essential, I think, if you're a video game creator in the YouTube space. And one of the things that really got me down there, not that I wouldn't have enjoyed it anyways, was the fact that Austin, Gaming Ain't Easy, the guy who actually runs the Southeast Game Exchange, invited me to come down and speak. And initially, again, I found that really an intimidating thing, but ultimately decided to do it anyways because I think doing scary things is important, right? It helps build character, helps push you forward in whatever arena of life that you're playing in. Neo, good morning. Jay, how's it going, man? Hello, Nurse. How you doing, man? Thank you for swinging by. Appreciate it. So, again, today what I really want to talk about was the entirety of that experience, from me initially, being offered to come down and speak at the Southeast Game Exchange, to what I did to prepare for it, to what it was like in the moment, to the takeaways that I found after the fact, and actually going through it, and some things that I learned going through that whole experience. Beck, are you having a croissant this morning? Is that what you're saying? And thank you for stopping by. So when it came to actually preparing for it, let me step back. If you're wondering, how do you even get on a panel, I would say really there are two ways to do that. One is you've already, sort of gained the leverage or notoriety or popularity that people will just ask you to come down. Or two is you can just ask people if you want to be on a panel. And I would say that if you're going to do that, then you would probably want to make sure that you know who to talk to, have an idea of what event that you want to speak at, and what you're going to bring to the table, right? Because, the big draw for somebody who speaks on a panel at one of these conventions is that you provide some sort of a value for the attendees, which in my case was not specifically rooted within the realm of straight up video games the way some of the other panelists did, but rather mine was more aimed, like most of my content is, at people who are video game content creators. So in that regard, if you're like, how do I get on a panel? At its core, just remember all this stuff is run by business, right? The convention, its ability to be successful depends not only on, its ability to bring in attendees to check it out, right? Pay to get in the door and check out all the vendors to make it an appealing, process or proposition for them. But then also, you want to make sure that once the attendees are there, that they're going to have a good time, they're going to experience valuable things, and then, tell their friends, because word of mouth marketing is so valuable, and ultimately want to come back. So if you feel like you've got something that you can contribute to the conversation in that, in a particular convention, then one of the things that you can do is just start talking to the people that make decisions, introduce yourself, and it's hugely helpful if you've already established a reputation, or if somebody goes to the presences that you have on the web, whether that's Twitter, whether that's YouTube, and they can see that you absolutely, have some experience in the arena in which you plan to speak. So it's definitely going to be helpful. Dad, good morning. Thank you for stopping by. Neo says, just as I started playing a new game, sorry man, I don't mean to interrupt. I'm still not sure how I get panels. I would say it's probably because you're dashingly handsome, Jay, if I had to guess. Sam, what's up? Hi, also I'm at school. Don't watch me at school, Sam. Pay attention to your teachers or professors or whatever, man. If it was DBZ, I'd be all over that. Hashtag hometown hero. That's true. You have home field advantage on that, I would say, when it comes to the Southeast Game Exchange. So if you're trying to look to get on a panel, those are things to look into, right? Normally whenever these, events are going to happen, you've got plenty of time in advance to prepare and figure out when they're going to be scheduled, because these usually get scheduled really far in advance, because there's a lot of logistics and coordination that goes into running a show. And it's not just what I've picked up just from going to shows, but also Muzz from Level 1 Games also does the a toy and collectible show both in Columbus and Cincinnati. So being friends with him, I've kind of gotten a first-hand look at just how incredibly complex it can be to coordinate things like making sure food is available and vendors, and naturally people who are willing to speak and do panels at a show like this. So yeah, as long as you can figure out, when it's going to happen, what you want to bring to the table, and who you need to talk to sort of get that conversation started, that would be probably the best way to go about it. You've got some time to prepare for that. So I lucked out with the Southeast Game Exchange because Austin actually offered for me to come speak, and I had not initially planned on making an offer to do something like that. I knew I wanted to go to Southeast Game Exchange just to hang out with a bunch of cool people because it was a blast last year, and of course I wanted to do it again this year, but it probably would not have occurred to me to make that ask. And then when he brought it up originally, he was like, do you want to talk about live streaming? And I was like, yeah, I can talk about live streaming, but do you want me to talk about starting a channel or just doing a gaming channel, period? And then over time, it sort of evolved into him just being like, just do something that, like the content that you do now on your channel, but, make it specifically aimed at gaming channels and whatnot. And that's kind of what I tried to do. Oak City, good morning. What's up, man? Playing some Castlevania this morning. That is awesome, Fabian. Actually, I was going to talk to you about Lords of Shadow at some point, but I'll get to that in a little bit. I think it's amazing just to be able to speak to a person like you, never mind a panel, and I don't travel well. I'm accessible, man. You can shoot me an email or hit me up on Twitter. Hey, NES, hey, Gamer Thumb TV. So, alright, yeah. So, moving on from that, again, I had kind of an advantage there because Austin had asked me to come down and speak, which I thought was really quite incredible. And again, I said yes to it, even though on the inside I was very apprehensive and nervous about it because I'd never really done that before, right? And, as many of you know, it can be intimidating just to look into a camera and make pre-produced content, and then it gets a little bit scarier when you have to go live, like, in a format where anything can happen. And then it can be even scarier when it's not, like you're not even staring into a camera, and now you have to stare at an audience of people and sort of make sure that you're staying on point, that you're bringing something of value, you're not fumbling over your words, you're not panicking, and those are all things that are very easy to get wrapped up in when you're in the moment. So, going down to the Southeast Game Exchange, let's talk about what happens like right before the panel happens. In my case, I actually had an extra day of margin, which I found to be an advantage and a disadvantage. So the advantage of, it was a 2-day show, right? Saturday and Sunday, a lot of panelists went on Saturday. I was the first one to go on Sunday. Now there's an advantage there because if you're not the first person who's going to go on a panel, then you can sort of watch other people's panels. It's a little bit less pressure. And you can kind of get the lay of the land a little bit easier, because that was the other thing that I did. J-Love, I actually filmed, her panel and Jay's panel, and Russ was on there as well. But whenever we were going to film it, we were like, well, where's this actually going to happen? So she and I actually went to the conference room where their panel was going to be. And the first thing I did was just sort of try to get the lay of the land, right? Figure out, are people going to be standing? Are people going to be sitting? What's the best place to film from if you're going to have somebody film you at a convention, which is a great idea to make sure that you can capture that experience. Because if you can film yourself doing it, then it instantly becomes, content for your channel. It also becomes very easy for you to review that and see what you did right, what you did wrong, things that you'd like to improve. But when we were trying to get the lay of the land and kind of figure out, technically the space that we were in, what it was going to present, challenges, advantages, and all that thing, one of the first things I did was start looking for power outlets, because technically my camera would have run long enough on battery that wouldn't have been a huge deal, but just the same, it's always nice to know you got access to power if you need it, especially if you have things like visual aids, like if you're going to be doing, like a PowerPoint presentation, if you're going to be showing video, or if you're doing something like Pixel Game Squad did, where you're going to do like an interactive kind of trivia thing where you have to play and stop a video frequently, then making sure you have access to power is definitely a helpful thing. So, before you even think about actually, getting up on stage and, doing the panel, it's helpful to know exactly what the space is like that you're going to be in. One of my favorites came to Thumb TV. You're being invited has to be an amazing feeling. You can't turn that down, right? Oh no, of course I couldn't turn it down. Plus, Austin's just a real sweetheart. It would have been hard for me to tell him no, and he knows that. He knows how to play on my emotions. At least you didn't get slapped at the end of your panel. I'm going to be using that footage, by the way. You did ask to get slapped, Jay, and it was tremendous. I'm glad I got to witness that, firsthand, and film it, no less. And I loved how all the cameras immediately descended on you when J-Lo started to wind up for that tremendous hit that you took, but I'm glad you're recovering. So, getting the lay of the land before you do the panel, definitely a helpful thing, right? But the thing that made it particularly challenging was, even though everybody in that first day was going in, sort of a more soundproof with a door shut, sort of enclosed space, which is great for audio, on Sunday we actually had to do it on the convention floor in a sectioned off area, which I was pretty sure that was going to present some audio challenges, and it definitely did whenever we got to that point, but, the other advantage of, sort of going on the second day is you can chill out a little bit, right? There's less pressure, you don't necessarily have to get all torqued up right before the first day of the convention. You can kind of run around, enjoy yourself, network, hang out with people, and that's a lot of fun. So I think that was like the big advantage. However, there's a disadvantage to going on the second day as well, and that is foot traffic. Because, at just about any convention, the first day is always the biggest day. The second day, historically, I would say in almost every convention I've ever been to in any industry, draws less people than the first day. Especially if this is a convention where, you've got a lot of vendors who are selling things. A lot of people get there early on that first day because they want to make sure they don't miss out on any inventory that might be there. So if there were like retro game hunters that came explicitly to the convention because they were most interested in buying games, you can expect there's going to be a lot more people running around. But that doesn't necessarily translate to a one-to-one either, right? Just because people are nuts about buying games, in my case, doesn't necessarily mean they're nuts about learning about, being a video game YouTuber and what that entails. So it is something to keep in mind. So those were kind of the pros and cons of first day, second day, and some of the prep I did as soon as I got there. And one of the other things that was cool that, I suppose I would advocate for, just being a good dude or trying to help out your fellow creator, is if you do film other people on their panels, it does, sort of give you some experience doing that as well. You get, some useful video that you can kick to them. And then you also kind of get an idea of what the crowd's going to be like, right? And you kind of get an idea of, the convention attendees, like, if they're more chill and laid back, if they have a lot of questions, if they're a little bit rowdier in some cases, I guess. So, again, depending on which day you go, you can find a lot of pros and cons there, but anything you can do to sort of do some prep work is important. And one of the things I'll say about my prep work in terms of the content I put on the panel, period, was, and I think this is a good piece of advice, is to not overthink and stress about it. And the weird thing is, I knew about this since June, so I had fully, almost 3 full months to do exactly that. I could have overthought this thing to death, gone absolutely crazy with it. But I didn't. One of the things that I told myself that I would do, and at first I was like, I don't know if this is procrastination or if I'm just being, confident, or maybe the answer lied somewhere in between. I did not heavily script out 10 points that I wanted to make about things that I thought were helpful for video game creators. Rather, what I did was I just came up with 10 points that I knew were important, right? Things that I knew that I wanted to speak to. Things like not focusing too much on the numbers, or having a good understanding of why you want to get into YouTube to begin with, because I thought those were things that really warranted discussion, and they were things that tended to get brought up a lot when I talked to people who were on the fence about starting a channel, or they'd already started a channel, and they were kind of looking for some direction. Jugs, hello, how are you? Hey, I finally caught the stream. You did indeed. Thanks for coming, Jugs. I appreciate it. This place was at Greenville, South Carolina, as Jay has pointed out. Good morning, Dragon Gamer. How you doing, man? Sam says, any gaming conventions coming up in Ohio? In Cincinnati, yes. I believe the Columbus Toy and Collectible, CTS, the Columbus Toy and Collectible Show. Wait, not Columbus. Sorry, I'm getting the acronym wrong. But the one that L1 Games puts on, Muzz, he'll be talking about leading up to that. But that's going to be happening in Cincinnati. That much I know for sure. Rob, good morning, man. Thanks for hanging out. Yes, I'm glad as well. So when it came to me actually preparing for the content itself, I didn't really panic about it. I just knew there were 10 things, and I think that's something that took a lot of the pressure off, right? Because if you know your stuff, if you know the content, if you know what you need to speak about, like Brandon BP Retro Power, when he did his presentation about caring for or maintenance or repairing old games, that dude knows his stuff. And it's painfully obvious. There was no question that caught that dude off guard. He was 100% ready for it. And he didn't have to go through and script everything very carefully. He just brought some very relevant visual aids, and he just sort of did his thing. And that's kind of what I was on a mission to do as well. I was like, if I try to script everything out, one of two things is going to happen. One is I'm going to try to read the whole thing while I'm up there, which isn't great. It's not engaging. You can't make eye contact with people, and it seems like you are unprepared, I think. Or two, if I try to heavily script it out and memorize a bunch of it, then the whole time I was speaking to people, I wouldn't really be in the moment. I would be in my head, basically holding myself accountable to a standard that's very difficult, which is, make sure you don't, you hit point 1, but what if you miss 2 of those sub points? And I didn't really want to do that. Really, the only thing I wanted to do was just have a quick visual aid that I could have at a glance. So to that end, the only thing I did to prepare, I had a single note, an Evernote. I had 10 points laid out that I knew I wanted to hit. And if I sort of lost my place or wasn't sure what I needed to transition to next, I would just glance over at it real quick and then get back into it. So let's talk about actually doing it, actually being in the thick of the panel itself. It's weird because I feel like most of the nervous energy you would have before you do public speaking like this is actually rooted in just, all of the things that could happen, or all the things that might go wrong, or the things that, you might forget to say, right? All hypothetical stuff. But once you actually get into it, once you actually introduce yourself and start speaking, a lot of that instantly goes away because your brain just can't focus on 2 things at once, right? You can't focus on both being nervous and talking and saying something relevant. So I would say instantly, whenever you start speaking, a lot of that stuff just goes away instantly. And then if you know your stuff and you can, sort of speak in your own element, it becomes very, very easy to continue with. And that's sort of where I was at. Also, one of the things that I found was really helpful when I was doing it was right off the bat, I pointed out, that I hadn't done a panel before, and that was my first one. And, so in that way, it's almost disarming, or it lets the audience know, hey, gonna be a little bit nervous, but that's okay, we're gonna get through this thing together. So that was the strategy that I went with, was just being completely and utterly transparent to the best of my ability to point out, I'm not old hat at this, I haven't, been on the con circuit for 10 years, just, talking, 3-4 times a month or something like that. Was my first one. But now I'm a public speaker, and that feels good. Kinda, a little bit of a public speaker. Let me catch up with the chat real quick, and I'll go on. We're coming up on our prime period for show making. I love that run, the grind. It's much less tiring than streaming. I think they're both tiring in their own ways. Like, the production process for me can be tiring, but then streaming can also be a little bit draining, and you have to stay on it every day on a constant stream, I guess. Gotta go, class about to start. Sam, thanks for hanging out, man. Enjoy your classes. That's where we're learning to self-edit for public situations. That's something that I have to do as well. Chris Levi, how you doing this morning? Good morning, rise and shine. Lola says, together forever. Wait, what are we talking about, Lola? Hello again, Dragon Gamer. Hey, Chris Levi. You were always a public speaker. I guess suppose in a way, because I do stream a fair amount on this channel, especially now with this 90-day challenge thing. Please do the presentation for all my meetings, Josh. I would be happy to. And, you know, that would be a fun challenge. Do something completely outside the area of my agency and then, you know, try to make it work. But if anybody asks follow-up questions, I'll be totally screwed, right? I've just, like, run out of the room very, very quickly. So, in the middle of doing the presentation, yeah, one of the things that was challenging was the noise actually was a problem for, obviously, because, you know, you're on the show floor, and really the only thing we had separating us from, you know, just hundreds and hundreds of people who were shopping and looking for retro games and, you know, doing cosplay, and, you know, like, giveaway announcements and stuff like that. Noise was an issue, and it was funny, like, one of the things that I found on the thick of it was that there was one guy, and I don't know if it's because he had trouble hearing, or if he was just like, this dude don't know nothing, he just got up and left. And it's weird because in the moment I noticed that he got up and left, but I didn't panic about it. Like, I didn't see it as a reflection of, you know, me as a person or anything. I just thought immediately, I think the same mentality I have when somebody unsubscribes from my channel or unfollows me on Twitter, and that is, it just wasn't for them. So in that moment, it's just one of those things I kind of noticed about myself internally while I was trying to go through all these points, is I didn't really freak out that somebody didn't either, you know, didn't dig the panel. And one of the first things I thought, I was like, maybe the dude's just having trouble hearing. Because there were a couple people in the audience who came up to me afterwards and did mention that. One of the things I think that I might have struggled with is I think I might have gone through my points a little bit too quickly. But to be fair, I also knew that Linda and Catherine Retro were going to be going on that stage, as, you know, basically as soon as I was done, with about 10 minutes of margin, I think, between the two of us. So I also wanted to be respectful of their time and not ramble on for too long. So I tried to, you know, get through the points fairly briskly, kind of like the way I do here. And then at the end of that, you know, sort of go into a Q&A or discussion type thing, which is what I also do here. So, looking back on it, things that I might have changed, one is I definitely would have had a better visual aid. Originally, my thought process was, like, even with these streams, I don't provide a lot of visuals yet. Now, that's something I'm going to be improving and adding later on, but I'm just making incremental changes, because I want the focus to be the content, not purely production, right? But in retrospect, when you've got a room full of people who don't know who you are, you know, and especially if you have an audio problem so you can't explain it very well because they can't necessarily hear everything perfectly, it would have been really helpful to have used the giant TVs that were at our disposal, hook up my MacBook to it, and actually, you know, throw up at least a look at my channel and scroll through some of the things that it provides to kind of give people more context for who I am, what I'm about, the things that I try to put out on the channel. But for whatever reason, I was like, you know what, I don't really need to do visual aids because most of my stuff is really conceptual. I wouldn't have a lot of, you know, visual things to point to anyways. But what I should have done was have better, you know, visual representation of who I am, what the brand is, what YourPlayerTwo provides, and that is a mistake I will not make next time. And in regards to the audio, one of the things I wish I would have done, and I kind of did it last minute as a workaround, is I should have brought either an audio recorder, like the Zoom H1, if you're not familiar, an audio recorder is basically just like a tiny battery-operated device with a really good microphone on it, where if you put it close to somebody, it basically acts like a stick microphone, where, you know, you can capture your voice and, you know, capture audio from a subject very clearly, as long as it's in close proximity to them. What I thought I might be able to get away with was simply using a shotgun mic, which, hold on, I'll just grab it so you can see. Actually, I think I can grab the audio recorder. Nope, I don't have that with me. But what I thought I could rely on was this guy right here, which is the Rode VideoMic Pro. This is a microphone that I've used for, I don't know, at this point 6 or 7 years. It's fantastic. It's, you know, lightweight. It runs on a single 9-volt battery for like 30 or 40 hours. And I had that on top of my camera, and that's what I used to try to capture audio. But again, even though shotgun mic is a very directionally focused sort of pickup pattern, there was so much ambient noise that was still kind of rough, so I'm going to have to see what I can do with that. But what I did last second was I used my phone, and I basically just put this on a tiny tripod, which you can actually see in the thumbnail of this video, and I pointed that at the crowd, because my thought process was, if I'm recording from 2 angles and I have to edit it into something else, I can sort of cut between the crowd or questions that they might have, and then also myself doing it, kind of give a little visual variety. But the secondary advantage there was, hopefully I got better audio in recording myself, because the phone was much closer to me, it was on the table, whereas the camera was positioned a little further away. But in retrospect, that's funny, it's a retro game show. What I should have done was bring another audio solution to basically better capture my voice and everything. And yeah, the other thing there too is, like, they did have microphones for us, and they had like a small PA system that we could use to sort of, you know, get things out. But again, like, the noise was pretty loud there. So in that regard, you know, something I learned very quickly was, even though I'm a big fan of traveling light and only bringing the gear that you need to make the content that you need, if you're going to be in a situation where you're going to be speaking publicly, or you've got a chance to represent your channel or your brand in a significant way, over preparing sharing a little bit, maybe bringing additional gear to account for things like if you don't have power, for example, having a battery backup. Like one of the things I knew that I did have with me actually was if my MacBook, like if I screwed up and left it on all night and then I didn't have any battery, I had a backup battery that was beefy enough that I could have powered the MacBook from it. So anything you can do to sort of mitigate any technical problems you might run into, having backups for your backups, for example, making sure that another thing you could have done would be you have all your notes and you plan to look at a computer and your computer dies or it's not available or you experience technical problems, making sure that's also available on another device like your phone or a tablet you might bring with you or something would definitely be helpful as well. Let me back up to the chat for a minute. Hello, good morning, everyone. I'll be sitting on my second panel and my first. Hey, Spaceys, what's up, man? Did not even see you come in. Jonathan Pokespeaker saving you from boredom and entertaining you. I don't know how entertaining it is to hear me ramble on about microphones, but I'm going to do my best. Or he had to poop. You're right. I was like, let me grab this microphone, and then I just went and grabbed a quick poop. That's exactly what happened. My first ever panel was gold. My room was with 100 people watching and no one left. Dude, that's awesome. Were you? So I'm curious, Spaceys. Were you intimidated by that at all? Was that kind of rough? I missed your panel because I was at church when I finally got there and saw Linda and Captain Winter. I couldn't hear very well. I learned a lot from Generation Gap Game. Yeah, his panel was absolutely amazing. I loved his whole presentation. That was just solid. Jacob, what's up, man? How are you this morning? For PAX Australia 19, we are now in the process of putting together a set of pointers to chat about and putting together a bunch of slides for the chat. Very cool, man. Dragon Gamer says, did you see the official Overwatch Switch case yet? Yes, I did. We're almost certainly going to get Overwatch. Based on seeing that. Smash JT did a video on it yesterday. I was checking it out. I don't think that we're allowed... you mean you can't record the audience? You can only record yourself? Is that what you're saying, Spaceys? Bunny does it amazingly well. I do my best. I try, man. I appreciate the kind words. So... yeah, and in retrospect, like, even not just from a technical perspective, the things I would have done differently. Oh, actually, something else I will say, because, not even just because the audio wasn't top-notch, but something that's really just kind of helpful, period. Like, if somebody asks you a question, and there's a bunch of people in the audience, make sure you repeat the question back before you answer it. One is it sort of gives you a little bit of extra mental margin to answer it if it's a tricky question, but then two, if there are people in the audience who didn't really hear the question, because usually... unless there's a dedicated microphone available for people who come up to ask questions, or unless you pass them the mic to ask it, they may not hear that question very well, so it's always good to read the question back. But other than that, I was pretty happy with my performance on the panel overall. I was a little bit nervous in a couple of spots, I think. A couple times when I think I went a little bit more quickly than I probably should have. But by and large, I kept it very loose, very conversational. I had the points that I wanted to talk about, not too dissimilar to the way that we talk here in the mornings every day at 8 a.m. Eastern. And, I think that for the most part, it went pretty well. I feel like I covered the points. And the thing that really was the most reassuring to me, and I think that would be another good thing to be prepared for, are people who come and talk to you afterwards to ask follow-up questions. And in that regard, it was cool because I had, I did have business cards with me and stickers ready to kind of hand out to people who wanted to, engage a deeper conversation about YouTube. And it was really fantastic. I had one gentleman walk up to me and he was like, I want to talk about YouTube. And I thought he was talking about for his kid. I was like, oh, you mean for your kid? And he was like, no, I'm talking about me for my business. And what I did not expect is he was like, I run an automotive repair business. Why do I need to be on YouTube? Or he's like, my marketing team's telling me I should be making YouTube content. What do you think about that? And that was really quite awesome because that was kind of a curveball for me, right? I don't necessarily do YouTube content for people in other industries, but when he was like, what's the value? The thing that I pointed out was, I was like, when it comes to your local area, if people search for automotive repair, are you top of the search results in Google or YouTube? I was like, because those are the two biggest search engines on the planet. And, I was like, if your business isn't showing up or you're getting outranked by your competitors, that's a huge reason to consider making YouTube content because it'll sort of give you an edge. And, he kind of asked me what type of content he should make. And I was like, dude, show the process, right? Like, I know nothing about cars. I was like, but, I was like, just film yourself doing some common things that you would do in the course of automotive repair. I was like, that does a few things. One, it shows mastery of your craft, right? People can see you doing what you do and that you do it well and that you know what you're talking about. Two, it shows that you're so confident in your abilities or your business as a whole that you don't mind sharing that information to the benefit of people who maybe would want to try that repair themselves. And three, it sort of indicates very, very quickly, like for instance, let's say you're, changing brakes or changing a transmission. I have no idea. I knew nothing about cars. But I was like, whatever that process is, if you do a video and that video takes 2 or 3 hours to complete, I think that instantly makes a very strong value proposition for if I'm watching that video, I'm like, man, that's really cool that this dude knows what he's doing. I would rather throw money at him to fix my car than me try to do it, because I certainly couldn't do that and wouldn't want to sink 3 hours of my time into it. My panel was easier to sit on as I was one of 4 people on the panel, which allowed us to bounce off of each other. Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, you know, when I saw J Love and Russ and Jay going through their panel, I was like, this is really tremendous. Like, you know, they're able to just sort of pass the mic to each other and, you know, kind of fill the silence or any lulls in conversation very quickly, because they can just sort of pass the mic back and forth. But if you asked me to go back and do it again, if I would have preferred to be on a panel with people, I would say no. Not because I don't think it would be fun. I think it would be a blast. Like, if I had the opportunity to do a panel with Jay or Russ or J Love or really any other YouTube creator that was down there this weekend, I would absolutely do it. I think that would be fun. But as far as my first panel experience, I feel like I gained a lot more by going it alone. And the reason I say that is because, you know, for me, it was a question of, like, you know, internal anxiety and, you know, trying to build confidence to be more sure of myself in that arena. So to that end, if you ask me, like, if I could, you know, wave a magic wand and redo the whole experience, but then do it with a buddy or something, I still wouldn't do it. I would still go it alone and you know, see if I would have the ability to speak moderately intelligently in front of a room full of complete strangers. Well, not complete strangers. A lot of people were YouTube creators, but still, kind of a leap into the unknown, I guess. You should watch Matthew Mercer on a panel. He's amazing. He's a voice actor and Dungeon Master. I will check that out, Neo. I will make a note of it. Puzzle Solver, what's up, man? Hey, Josh, I'm actually awake. Glad to see you live again. When are you going to be back on the Chillcast? Friday. As far as I know, unless Avedon tells me otherwise. You know, the only time I'm ever not on the Chillcast would be if I have, like, family coming in or, like, a friend commitment that I couldn't break or something like that. But again, by and large, people know Friday nights, 10 o'clock, Josh isn't available, because that's when I do the Chillcast. But this past Friday, I was traveling down to Southeast Game Exchange, and honestly, I was going to try to jump on the Chillcast on Friday, but the internet connectivity was not great in the hotel room, so it would have been kind of rough for me to make it work, I think. But, yeah, as far as I know, I'll be on the Chillcast this Friday. Unless Avedon's like, no, you can't come on the Chillcast. You went and got me a Vita. I'm not gonna stand for it. Which he might. I doubt it, but he could. Jay says it was more difficult because sometimes there were things I wanted to say, but others were speaking, and I was trying to wait my turn. That's awesome. Jay, if you have any knowledge to drop right now about your panel experience and what it was like, sort of, you know, going through that with Jay Love and Russ, I would love to hear, but that's something I didn't even consider. So you heard it here first. Jay, you know, was mad that people were stealing the spotlight from him. That's the real takeaway. His name is NES Addict. He's incredibly selfish. No, I'm kidding. That's terrible. But I am curious, though, man. Like, if you have any insights or anything you thought about it, because you're somebody who did a panel, too, right? Like, I'm not the only one who can, like, you know, drop some insight or observation here. You can absolutely do the same thing. And I think you've been on a panel before, right? That wasn't your first one, was it, Jay? He does D&D on YouTube. It's amazing. One day, I'm going to really jump into the world of D&D. I'm not sure when that's going to be, but someday. Because it is a lot of fun, and stepping into a character is, you know, entertaining. I'll send you links on Twitter if you want. Yes, absolutely send me links. That's the best. Like, if anytime somebody tells me something in the chat, like, hey, here's something you need to go check out, always a good idea to just shoot me the link directly, because otherwise I'll forget about it, or I might forget to go back and look through the chat again. Yes, Avedon. Exactly. I'm so excited. I just gotta figure. I gotta send him a couple games with it, right? I think the first one, no doubt, is gonna have to be Persona 4, right? And the thing is, that's not really an uncommon game. It's the best game for the system, period, in my opinion, for the Vita. But when it comes to Persona 4 Golden, I think I saw a few for sale the other day at a game shop. I mean, they're all over the place. Like, that's not a particularly rare game. You can get it for like $20, and it would be an incredible $20 to spend on the Vita, because it will provide you a solid 70 hours of entertainment without breaking a sweat. It's got interesting characters, it's colorful, it's bold, it has style for days, it's an Atlas release, just all good things. I can't say enough good things about it. I gotta head to work, folks. Thanks to YourPlayerTwo, Oak City. Enjoy your day at work, drive safe, and thank you for coming to hang out this morning, man. I always appreciate it. Space says my panel was being hosted by a former Australian video game TV show called Good Game. What was the... Wait, hosted by a former Australian... Oh, video... At first, I didn't see the video game. Like, even though I read it, I was like, I just thought game show. Well, that sounds fun. Well, I don't think we have a ton of, like cable video game-based programming, I don't think. But then again, I can't remember the last time I really made an effort to watch cable TV. For me, all of my video content comes from like YouTube, Netflix, Prime Video, more, a lot lately as well. I did enjoy doing the panel with others, but I think that it could have been more spread out between the three of us. We probably should have had specific questions that we could all go down the line answering, so everyone got the same amount of time speaking. Yeah, I could see that being kind of rough, especially, I mean, because you see some panels like online or at some shows where they've got like 8-10 people there that are answering questions, but I suppose it also depends kind of on the format too, right? I mean, if you've got 10 actors from the MCU that are doing, you know, a massive like press junket or something like that, people probably have questions they could lob at, you know, individual speakers. But yeah, I didn't even think about that. I'm so selfish, Jay. I did not consider for a moment the challenges that you may have been experiencing in that format. Fabian says cable TV in general is going away. I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I haven't had cable television since 2006, I think. For the past 13 years, I've been expressly like home video or streaming services or YouTube. Dragon Gamer says, bye everyone. Dragon Gamer, have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks for hanging out, man. Appreciate you. Dude, no worries. Thank you, Jay. But yeah, I mean, yeah, the whole Southeast Game Exchange experience was an absolutely positive one. But you know, the whole panel experience, I can't wait to do it again sometime. If Austin's interested in having me back to speak, would love to do it. So we'll see what happens moving forward. But now I definitely feel confident when, you know, someone's like, "Can you speak?" I can be like, "Yes, I did speak at one point." Glad you're able to come and chill. Yeah, I mean, it was good to hang out a little bit, man, for sure. Also, I do have some good pictures to send you. Yeah, I can see how that would be a challenge, man. Definitely. I'm completely digital on my Vita, and I shelled out for the 64 gig card when I bought one 3 years ago, but Persona 4 Golden is one of the only physical games I bought because of recommendation. No regrets. No, I have not recommended that to anyone and heard them regret it. Like, I think, who was it? I can't remember who I was talking to on Twitter. It wasn't the judge. It was somebody else who was like, what game should I get? And I recommended that, and they were, you know, all about it. Question for you, matey. How hard was it to get your panel approved? I didn't have to get it approved, really. The only thing that I had to do was, you know, Austin gave me a call, and the only real follow-up conversation we had was Austin was going to be at E3. I knew I was going to E3 with Fabian here, and we, you know, Fabian GamerThumb TV here. He got to hang out with Austin as well. He's a really good dude. Fabian says I need to go to one of these non-E3. Yeah, dude, if you can make the Southeast Game Exchange sometime, come hang out, man. That's a great time. But one of the things that we did find, or the only follow-up, I guess, was that Austin and I hung out at E3, and, you know, in the course of us, like, you know, going out to dinner and you know, kind of hanging out in the evenings, you know, I brought up, because initially it was like, yeah, let's talk about live streaming, and I was like, I can do that, but I was like, I don't know how much technical information I can dispense about live streaming. I was like, I thought it might be more practical to talk about, you know, just starting a gaming channel and, you know, kind of some of the meta around, I guess, rather than the very specific technicals. And he was totally open to that, and honestly, it's a good thing too, because if we had tried to get super technical with that, and I had to be very nuanced, like, oh, here's how to set up OBS, or here's how to adjust your settings and things like that, like, that would have been really difficult given the ambient noise in that room. So definitely glad that, you know, he was all right with that. So yeah, in terms of getting it approved, it was basically just me calling or texting Austin and just being like, I want to do this, and him being like, okay, or yelling at me like, no, that's not a good idea. PAX Australia took a month to approve ours. Wow. Trending #1 on Reddit was what got us over the. Wait, what exactly was trending on Reddit? PAX? Did it feel different to speak to a camera than actually having the people in front of you? You mean, did it feel different? You mean, just, is it different now speaking to you guys on this camera versus people in front of me? Like, did it feel different? A little bit, yeah, but only because, like, you know, here I can read your messages, and, you know, that's great, and it's a very direct, you know, like, you know, brain to keyboard communication, so I can kind of get your feedback in real time. It's a little different when you have to talk in front of people, because, you know, I think there's a tendency there, at least for me, to overthink things, right? Because you can kind of see people's body language, you can see if they look annoyed, if they look engaged, if they look bored, like if you see people looking at their phones and stuff. And I think if you focus too much on it, then it can kind of mess with your confidence, because, you know, someone might only be looking at their phone for a quick second, but if you glance over and see it while you're speaking, you're like, oh my god, is everything super boring right now? Do they not care about what I have to say? What's happening? So for me, what I did was I did the thing that I said I was going to do. I basically tried to keep alternating eye contact with different individuals, you know, on different sides sides of the room periodically. I tried not to keep my focus on any one spot for too long. Firstly, because it's creepy, right? If I just stare directly into your eyes the whole time, it would be kind of weird if we were in person. On a screen, it's probably not so bad. But then, you know, secondarily, I knew that personally, if I focused too long on any one person, that I would start to, you know, probably question myself internally, because that's, I don't know. I feel like self-awareness has always been a pretty good strength of mine, and the ability to sort of, you know, read people's body language and kind of where they're at. Has always been something I've been able to do, but, you know, in that sense, I would have been way overthinking, because I would have been looking at it through the lens of, oh, like, oh, what's this person up to? It would have been purely through the lens of, like, oh, what if I'm not providing value? What do I do? This is a horrible idea. I totally could have collapsed in on myself like a dying star, and yet was fortunate enough not to. I think mainly because I tried to mix it up. I tried not to focus on any one particular person for any great length of time. No, I was part of a gaming story that... okay, I gotcha. Oh, ex-Sega Hotline staff member reunite after 25 years. Okay, yeah. At first I was like, wait, what do you mean? I was like, how did that trend #1 on Reddit? But yeah, I can see how that would have. Absolutely, man. So, I'm trying to think if there's literally anything else that I can talk about the panel experience. I'll tell you one thing that made it a lot better for me. I probably should have mentioned this earlier. Was having people like, you know, J Love, T Belly, these creators who I've grown to call friends over the past couple of years, be there to support me was hugely beneficial. Honestly, it was like, you know, if I was a little bit worried about what strangers or newcomers who had never seen me before might think, it was hugely reassuring to know that I could look over to the left in the front row and that I would see friends and, you know, peers and people that I have a great deal of respect for that were wanting me to do well. Like, that was something that I couldn't put a price. There's no amount of, like, you know, preparation or technical things I could have put in place, like microphones or stuff to make something nice after the fact, that would have given me as much confidence as just knowing that I had people who cared about me watching. That was phenomenal. And if any of you are watching this either now or after the fact, thank you so much for that. I can't tell you how much I appreciated it. So, the other thing that I will say is, even though the ambient noise was kind of a bummer because it was hard for some people to hear, it was also kind of an advantage for me because, you know, I cracked a few jokes, and honestly, if any of my delivery fell flat, if anything that I did to try to, you know, kind of lighten things up fell flat, I wasn't going to be in a room of deafening silence where you can hear the crickets so vividly. Rather, because there was ambient noise, I was a little less concerned with if something didn't quite hit the mark or didn't land, because there was so much extra noise happening that actually I think was kind of comforting in a weird way. Not technically an advantage, but anecdotally, yes, huge advantage. Little support team in the crowd was nice. Had I been there, I would have watched. Oh, dude, I know you would have watched, but, you know, going to church is important. I actually, you know what, next year, you know, if we're hanging out, I would like to go to church with you and kind of see what it's like on where you're at. Our panel was in a very quiet room. Was that intimidating? Like, did that give you any sort of pause? Like, dude, because that's the thing. I'm like, oh yeah, no problem speaking. But, you know, even though Southeast Game Exchange isn't the biggest con in the world, certainly not the smallest, right? It's definitely bigger than Korg's, for example. But PAX, like, that's like AAA, right? Like, if you'd asked me to be like, oh, do you want to do a panel in front of a room of 200 people? That probably would have been a little bit more intimidating. But, you know, I mean, you build up, right? And for me, I'm glad that I kind of started at an intermediate level, right? I much would have rather talked to maybe the 20 or 30 people that were in this panel than, you know, be thrown into the deep end of like, yes, you will be giving a TED Talk tomorrow. I hope you're prepared. Because at that point, I probably would collapse in on myself like a dying star. That would be hugely intimidating. Mixed bad joke. I hope nobody caught. Yes, that's exactly where I was at, because I made some joke, and I don't know if it fell flat or not, but like the microphone, I wasn't expecting to be holding a mic. I thought we would have maybe a different, like a lavalier mic or something like that, I guess. And when I hold it, I was like, I think I made a joke at the beginning. I was like, I don't know if I should be talking about YouTube or battle rapping right now, but I don't know if that hit. But all I could think about was 8Mile, and then it was bad because I struggled to kind of figure out where I was going to start, because all I could keep thinking about was all those mom spaghetti memes, you know. Not my best opener, maybe, but, you know, I couldn't really tell how much people cringed at that, because there was plenty of ambient noise to insulate and protect me from it. But that was because the room were extremely attentive to our stories. Right. I can imagine. Our PAX EU panel will be in front of 800 to 1,000 people. Ooh, I assume there's going to be video of that's going to manifest after the fact spaces. Is that a fair statement? Are you guys lolling at the cringe or at the battle rap joke? Because if I get the laugh here, you know what? I can live with that. Even if it's not a real lol. Even if you guys are just like, ooh, that was bad, but I'm going to throw him an LOL out of pity, I'll take it. Because I'm shameless. Mostly. So. Both. Thank you, Neo. I appreciate that. I can admire that sort of honesty, and I think that's again one of the things that I was determined to do, and not over preparing for it, was to just have fun. Like, I didn't go to the Southeast Game Exchange with the intention in my head of like, ooh, time to strategize. These are the key players I need to talk to, or these are the opportunities I want to leverage. These are the businesses I want to get to know better. Now, I mean, I think those are good things to do, but I didn't go down there with a headspace where I was just like, ooh, time for ultra efficiency, productive kind of, YouTuber guy. I just want to go there and have fun, not be an idiot to the best of my ability, and just hang out with people. I want it to be very low pressure, and I think another reason that kind of drove that was I didn't want to be all torqued up and trying to manage a million different things in my head before I did a panel either. Plus, I think, if you let those kind of activities like networking and getting to know people better just happen organically instead of trying to force it, I think that is something that works better in most cases than, trying to, run up to everyone like, hey, I got a business opportunity for you. Probably not the best play. And I actually did talk to at least one other YouTuber who echoed those sentiments, which was incredibly reassuring. I may not be able to record it being a paid event. Oh, yeah, I guess not. Yeah, that's one of the other things, too, is like, that I would say you should do before you do a panel is to make sure you know the logistical details, right? Like, whoever says, yeah, you can do a panel, make sure you know if you can or can't record. Austin did not seem to mind, because I talked to him about it in advance, but, at some of those bigger venues, like we're doing PAX or something, that could be a much tighter environment in terms of, how much flexibility you have with what you want to do. The spaghetti meme I thought was funny. Yeah, or if you listen to that version of the song on YouTube where all he says is "Mom spaghetti" through the whole thing, because it's absolutely hilarious. I highly recommend it. My main goal is to just enjoy myself and chat with other gamers and meet some of the people that follow me online. I don't know that I could have more succinctly summed up exactly what my aim was with the Southeast Game Exchange, but you just nailed it. The music right now is sick. Yes, I need to change it at some point to, Avedon actually did say anything that was on his YouTube channel was fair game. I can start using that. This is actually a Zelda and Chill album from Spotify, which I've linked in the chat before, but if you want it after that, I can message it to you. But it's on Spotify. You can find that on YouTube. If you just type Zelda and Chill, it's going to be like the top result. But this was one of the small technical enhancements I made to the stream. And basically every weekend, Jay, I'm trying to make small improvements to the stream. Like next week, you're probably going to see some on-screen graphics here with things like, hey, here's where I am on Twitter, or hey, here's where to find next week's video, or something like that. But I didn't want to overproduce, because if I overproduce this stream, then I will recreate the problems I sought to escape by testing it out. Specifically, overthinking, overproduction, worrying too much about things like lighting, and not enough about things like making sure what I say actually has some value to people. So in that regard, I'm making tiny incremental tweaks to the stream. I'm not going crazy, because you make a whole bunch of changes at once, then you basically massively increase the odds that something can go wrong, right? I'm so bad at networking, not coming across desperately. It's such a bad thing, lol. I mean, that's the thing, like, that's something I think everyone thinks about, right, Neil? Like, it's something that I thought about, like, especially at the Southeast Game Exchange, right? I mean, there's some really heavy hitters there. You've got, like, Shady J, 8-Bit Eric, like Pixel Game Squad, even Generation Gap Gaming, dude's rocking, like, what, 50 or 60,000 subs right now, I think. But I think it comes down to just getting to know people as people, right? It's not... what's the best way I can say this? I don't think it's uncommon to see somebody who is playing at a higher level than you and being slightly intimidated by that fact. I certainly can be, but, again, at the end of the day, most of these people, and this is something I've heard a ton of people say in chat, I've heard a lot of people, heard a lot of offline discussion where we've talked about it, and I've seen it firsthand. Most of these people who you're like, ooh, what if this person's like a YouTube demigod? They're just regular people, down to earth, they're looking to chill and have a good time as well. I think as long as you are chill, you're probably not going to have a lot of problem connecting with people. Jay says, I personally really enjoyed your live streams. Thank you, man, which is why I keep showing up. And that's the thing, like, as long as this is viable, as long as people like the idea of showing up at this hour, I'm pretty sure that after Halloween I'm going to keep going with this, because, again, I mean, just speaking selfishly, it gives me a charge in the mornings, right? I go through the whole rest of my day and I don't have to worry, like, oh man, did you push the ball down the field a little bit? Did you make progress towards your YouTube goals? I don't have to worry about that, because I know that I've consistently tried to bring value every day, and before my day even starts, really, at 8 a.m. So, I'm glad you enjoy it, man. I'm glad to have you here. Appreciate it. Get a stream deck. It will make the whole stream experience more streamlined. Oh, don't worry, sir. I know. This is well known to me. Although now I feel like if I do continue this, I'm going to have to get that Stream Deck XL, which is a completely insane piece of hardware with 32 programmable buttons, but one step at a time. Tiny. Wait. evolutionary changes, not revolutionary. Well, at least that's what I'm going to shoot for anyway, Spaces. I am like, oh, I'm not understanding that. Just talking to Josh, and then I'm like, oh, wow, God, how did that come across? Oh, no, dude, don't worry about it. Like, even if you said the most weird, awkward, like, incredible, cringy thing, and then immediately in your head, you're like, oh my God, what are people going to think? I can tell you, I'm not going to freak out about it. Nobody in this chat's going to freak out about it. I'm pretty sure I know everybody who's watching right now. And I can tell you, like, this is a crew of people that are incredibly encouraging, right? Like, even if you botch something, they're not going to, not gonna yell. I mean, if you were outrageously spammy, or if you just throw in insults, like your hair looks stupid or something like that, maybe they would. But if you're just worried about saying something awkward, don't sweat it, man. Most people are more understanding than you'd imagine, and most people are more concerned with themselves in the moment than anything that you would have done. It's so weird how that works there, right? You go to sleep and you're about to drift off to dreamland, and then you remember that horrible, cringy thing you said like 8 years ago, and you're just like, oh God, what am I doing with my life? I've been there. It happens to all of us. We're always our own harshest critic. Exactly. To echo that sentiment perfectly, as Fabian just pointed out. It personifies and humanizes a person when you meet them face to face. Oh, absolutely. And I think one of my favorite people I did meet, I mean, Russ Lyman was great because he and I had collaborated before. I had not collaborated with T-Belly before, but he and I knew kind of ran in the same circles, and I dropped in on a few of his live streams. But getting to meet that dude in person, just, again, it was the same thing with meeting you, Fabian. Like, just... when you find good creators, just good people, really, and you see that they're basically exactly the same dude or lady dude that they are online as they are off, that is incredibly reassuring. And I don't think I've met anyone yet who I'm just like, ooh, that person's not at all who I thought they were. Most people have been exactly the people they purport to be on YouTube. Grady Paul says, best advice ever for a YouTuber is never end up with a channel like GamerThumb TV, 48,000 subs, no growth, and 50 views on a video. Good example on how not to be. Grangy, I don't agree with that at all. And I'm sorry, like, I'm not sure if you're just like a regular troll or if you're a friend of Fabian's who might be making a joke here, but, I would say the best advice for a new YouTuber is not to worry about the numbers at all, right? If you're doing something, I mean, even if Fabian had 100,000 subscribers, he was only getting 10 views per video and he loved what he was doing, that's a success. Success is a very relative thing, so not sure where you're coming from with that, but those are my thoughts on it. Oh, it's a joke? Okay, I was about to say, like, I don't know this dude, so I was like, if this dude's just trying to bomb up the stream, this is great, because it's an interesting challenge, but I gotcha. When are you appearing on the Sid Spacey show? Whenever you like to have me, man. We might have to sync up the time zones or whatever, but yeah, I would be happy to do it. We already collaborated once, and I did, I think, fairly poorly compared to everybody else who was on that video, but, what are you gonna do? And he says, I was lucky enough to have communication with Aaron and Chris over the last year, which helped me not to fanboy out. Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, I had talked to Riv like once or twice. I never really talked to Chris at all, though. Like, that was my first experience really with Chris. It seemed like a really good dude too, man. Like, watching him and Riff kill it on that panel. But like, I talked to, like, we exchanged information at E3 when I talked to Riff, and he was just, again, a super nice guy for like the 3 to 5 minutes I got to talk to him. I was like, this dude is a tremendous example of people who are the same on their channel as they are off their channel. So in that regard, it was actually, he was not someone who I was real worried, like, ooh, what if I look dumb in front of Riff? I already knew that he was just, again, normal, down-to-earth dude, and that, came across very clearly, I think, to anybody who met him in the first 5 minutes. I'm not a huge fan of characters on YouTube because you meet them in real life and it's totally different people. Always prefer genuine people. I don't think that's true, Fabian. I think there's at least one character that you like. Greedy Paul, I was about to look at my library wondering what video you were even referring to. Yeah, I was about to say, like, this is a really weirdly specific thing. This has to be, like, a friend of Fabian's who's hanging out. But yeah, Fabian, AVGN, I know you like that character, and I know you also like James Rolfe. Yeah, we're still waiting for you to finish Green Hill Zone, Mario Boy. Look, I'm sorry I don't subscribe to your Sega nonsense, okay? Look, Sega had its shot, and it lost, okay? Although, technically, it's still winning. And actually, side note, I'm kind of excited. I wasn't excited when I went to E3 and saw the Mario and Sonic Summer Olympics thing. But when I saw this new 2D thing that they started talking about, I became a little bit more interested. And also, I don't feel bad about that at all, Spaceys, alright? I grew up a Nintendo kid, and I'm not making apologies for it. I was a rampant Nintendo fanboy, only because when you're 8 years old, you don't have the luxury of being like, well, I'll just go buy all the systems with all this money I have. No. When you're a kid, you have more time, but you're at the mercy of your parents and, what they're willing to provide you for your gaming entertainment, right? So it's easy to fall into the mentality of a fanboy. Then you get older, better. And it's like, you have less time, but then you have more resources to buy more game things. So now I can be multi-plat all day and be like, you know what? Every system's great in its own way. But at the time, I was like, no one likes Sonic. Sonic's stupid. Mario's faster. And so I said I was a huge fan of... Oh, well, okay, sorry. I read that wrong. That was probably a little more pointed than I should have been. But I don't know. I don't think I've met any YouTubers that have a character and then I met them in person. But I guess that does make a good point. I suppose there was... I'm trying to think if I watch any YouTubers now that really get into character. I mean, every YouTuber to some degree I think gets a little bit more charismatic, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're doing a full character like Francis or something like that, I guess. Will you be doing the new DBZ game when it comes out? Maybe? It does look fun, and it looks like if it's a direct retelling of the Cell Saga, since I haven't watched that forever, it might be fun to play through that, just because that is one small piece of the anime universe I can speak to with a little bit of it, like not a lot, a little bit. So maybe. His best videos are when he's just James. Yeah, see, that's the way I feel about... Again, I use Kevin Smith as an example constantly. Dude's always been a huge inspiration to me, but, like, if you gave me the choice between watching one of Kevin Smith's movies or just listening to Kevin talk for 2 hours and storytell about his time in the industry, the things that he's done since he made, a lot of those, his, I don't know, more known works, I guess, in the 90s, like Clerks and whatnot, I would choose to listen to him talk every time. So, yeah, then there's a good chance I'll be picking it up, Neo. Wait, going back, Jay, you want a stream deck, you mean? To all aspiring parents, practice tough game system, love it, won't kill them. Yeah, thanks, Dad, thanks you're such a horrible father making me only have a Super Nintendo when I was a kid. How are you like this? I met Top Hat Gaming Man when my channel was still very new. I was only up to 100 subs, and he was nothing like his on-screen persona. Can't wait to do that game on my channel. I'll be curious, man. I'll see if I can drop by and check it out. If I miss it, you shoot me a DM or something. But right now, I have to end the stream because I have to get ready for work. But anyways, those were some of the things that I learned from the panel experience at Southeast Game Exchange. Again, huge thanks to Austin for letting me be on there. Huge thanks to everybody who came out to support me within the gaming community who was at that convention. I appreciate it immensely. And I can't wait to do another one. So that's all for today. Another video tomorrow, 8 a.m. Eastern. Honestly, I'm not sure what the topic is yet. It might be Southeast Game Exchange. But at some point in the evening, I'm going to be doing pickups this week to go through the things that I picked up at the Southeast Game Exchange, and also just the games that I picked up from July, which I still haven't covered yet. Super late to that party. And in a few days I'll probably do pickups for August, which are a little less numerous, I would say, because I was at the con. Did I finish Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3? Yes, I did finish it on stream with Abaddon and Jaken and was it Chips? No, Chips couldn't make it. That's right. Yeah, see you tomorrow, Fabian. Great to catch you live again. Thank you so much for coming here. And yes, I would absolutely love to be on the show sometime, man. Let's work it out. Same bad time, same bad channel. Absolutely. So, all right, you guys enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you sometime soon.